This match has got to be one of the highest rated games that I think I've ever seen as far as the total average of all the players goes. So welcome back everyone to the Brightworks. For today we're going to be taking a look at an absolutely top-notch replay that was played here on Sector 318C, a map that I am infamous for loving. I adore this map. I think it's a wonderful one. I think the way that it's laid out and all the different lanes that you fight on is really interesting. We'll get into all that in a second here, but I want to introduce our top-notch players that are going to be making up each of these teams. So, without further ado, our Armada commander spawning in the backlines here in red is going to be none other than Regeki. Regeki clocking in at a gargantuan 63 open skill, going to be representing basically the tippity top of the 8v8 leaderboard. Yeah. Now, all the way on the other side, spawning as the blue commander and also neck and neck with the red team leader. Spawning at 63 open skill as well. Hello, Zhao. Zhao going to be showing us some good old-fashioned Cortex gameplay as a blue commander and marching forward into this high ground right here. Going to be trying to claim these metal extractors, these 3.0s, looking very enticing to that blue, commander marching forward right now. Going to be showing us what he's got. Now, usually I just introduce the team leaders, but I feel it's appropriate to take a look at this right-hand side here, where we have Inda Club at 62, Narnuk at 52, Hello Austin at 61, and Pro High Game at 52. We have multiple players on each team. 3 players on each team above 50, and the rest of them are above 30. So this is, I mean, as far as high-level, pro-level gameplay goes, usually I consider about 40 OS to be kind of the pro level, right? There's no hard line. There's not really a professional, you know, quote-unquote 8v8 scene, but this is about as good as it gets. You'd be hard-pressed to find a match this stacked with top-notch players. And already getting off to a ripping start here. Ticks coming across the map right now from Shashkarin, trying to take advantage of an opportunity to blast down the Seafoam Green Commander Hellshound. Claret is requesting radar. That's a funny ping right there. Yeah, the Claret, apparently not even in the game, is requesting radar. Pretty funny. Hellshound going to be building a couple of those wind turbines and trying to deflect this tick attack, and so far doing a phenomenal job. Yeah, most of the ticks have been deflected, with 2 of them managing to sneak by. Really a testament to the skill and the APM of all things that these commanders have at their disposal here. If we actually hover over this, I believe there's a way to, I believe it'll show, yeah, there we go. You can see 40 APM. Quite high for beyond a reason. I think usually kind of the top-notch players tend to linger around 50 to 60. It is funny. One of the players that's really funny to look at for their APM count is Euthermal, actually. He is a StarCraft 2, a retired StarCraft 2 pro, turned content creator, and he plays a lot of bar. And I've watched a couple of his games, and he famously has one of the highest APM among bar players. And I think it translates directly from the StarCraft, right? StarCraft is a famously high APM RTS game, and it's hilarious to see that translates almost directly over to Beyond All Reason. Micromanaging different units, different clusters of units all over the place. We've got Cyan Ticks headed towards the brown base at this point. Praetor now moving forward, and it looks like, yeah, gonna be trying to defend here with Grunts. The problem with Grunts, of course, is that they're quite a bit slower than those Ticks. Some Rascals coming back for the defense. Ticks versus Rascals is such a funny matchup because, technically speaking, the Rascals should always win in a 1v1. However, because of the turret turning and because of the way that the movement works and a bunch of different, like, tiny little factors that all add up, the Rascal ends up not being one of those. The Rascal oftentimes not being able to kill the Tick, which is quite a funny little change. A weird matchup. Nice engagement right here, my goodness. Some valuable Ticks right there, taking out 2 metal extractors and a wind turbine. Definitely well worth their metals cost, and continuing to press forward here as well. Let's switch over to the blue team's view here. If I click on this button, it shows us what the blue team can actually see, and it gives us a little bit of perspective as to how much they've actually scouted here. So you can see we know where Shoddy's base is, we know where Praetor's base is, the brown and maroon commanders respectively. We kind of know where the other commanders are going to be based on their presence on the front lines here, but we don't have really proper scouting of their back line. It means it's going to be really difficult if, say, Raiko wanted to go for a little bit of bombing here. However, contrast to that, if we switch to the red team here, you can see the scouting has been much better. Very, very high quality scouting here. We have all the wind turbines, we know where the mexes are, we know where, you know, basically everybody's started and where all their bases are going to be. With all that information in mind, it means that you actually have a lot of opportunities to send run-bys, right? It's a lot easier to know where you can run by if you have units that have already scouted for those run-by paths and you know exactly where you can send those units at. Shoddy setting up a heavy laser tower here, scouting that Narnak is going for bots. This is a efficient way to fight this here. Shoddy going into vehicles, which means it's going to be a little bit slower to start, right? You're going to only have so many units on the front. Really important to keep these alive. But because you're going up against bots, it means that you can go into static defenses to drive them back. So heavy laser tower coming up here, and I wouldn't even mind seeing like a heavy laser tower creep, something like that. Just going for HLT and then going for build power. HLT, build power, kind of leapfrogging them forward, right? It's a very easy way of stepping forward into this situation right now. Narnak with this Vikings helmet. You win that by winning a Bar Pro League, I believe. Rocketbot's trying to blast down this HLT, but it will be repaired. Nicely done. Shoddy manages to keep it alive, and now it's going to be very expensive to march this army forward. Rocketbots need to kill that HLT, but there's so many units in front, including, of course, these riot tanks, which are perfect for dealing with these big swarms of units. Oh, HLT getting very low. The artillery piece is barraging them, though, and just like that, barely managing to drive them back. The power of the HLT, Heavy Area Control Laser Tower. I wanted to check in on this because the Centurion are looking pretty nice recently. We've seen quite a lot of Centurion gaming. Those spicy T1 meatballs have been doing wonderful work across the many battlefields that I've been watching recently. Seems like Centurion have finally found their place. They were, for the longest time, essentially a neglected unit. Now that they've had their AI tweaked a little bit, they've been adjusted ever so slightly. Oh, a little bit of a comm trade right here. Hagen and Volshok walking past each other. Both of them will go down right now. Regeki moving into position to eat up all that juicy wreckage with the comm of his own. What I was saying, though, is that with those Centurion getting their change that allows them to fire while adjusting their aim, it means that they're quite a bit more potent, actually, and nowadays can be very, very useful on the front line, especially as anti-swarm, which was effectively their job in the first place, which meant that they essentially couldn't do their job, which was, you know, that's kind of a weird issue, right? But also it meant, of course, that now that they can actually hit things while targeting, they can hit moving targets quite a bit easier. So things like medium tanks or even light tanks and sizers, for instance, going to be a lot easier to shut down with the Centurion. Always cool to see little changes like that and how they affect the game. In this case, it means the Centurion are very, very popular at the moment. So Narnak essentially forced into the vehicle lab on the front line here, the build power preparing the commander right now. This vehicle lab is necessary because once this defense has been set up, there's really not a lot you can do about the fact that it can outrange any unit you can produce. You have to start getting these shell shockers out, and indeed, that's exactly what Narnak is going for right now. The blue commander already up into T2. My goodness, the pros move fast. 7-minute T2 lab here for Zhao, who's just been greeting his heart out. Got for, well, yeah, went for all the mexes right here and then went for all this sort of stuff. A little bit of a leak right now, though. We do have a single fiend to clean all this up. That's not bad. There we go. Trying to get those T2 mexes up and running. Those T2 mexes costing 600 metal, actually 640 metal, pardon me. 640 metal apiece to build those T2 mexes. Well worth it, though. That metal pays for itself very, very quickly. This run-by is actually devastating, taking down a huge part of the economy right now for the Cyan Commander Narnak. And, of course, his grunt isn't quite finished either. It's going to start hiding over here and start blasting away at whatever it can, taking down, well, simultaneously a wind turbine and a LLT right there. I haven't seen split firing grunts ever, I think. Yeah, I don't think I've ever seen someone split fire a grunt there. And that obviously wasn't intentional, but you know, it's only a matter of time, right? Once the Korean Bar League kicks up, I have a feeling we're going to be seeing some crazy high APM gameplay. Commander trade on the southern side right here for happiness, and it looks like the Admiral both went down in a loving embrace. Traded out on the front lines. Looks like about an even metal split over here as well. I do believe these Resbots managed to reclaim the Commander Corpse right there at Praetor, while the Commander for the Volshok there was eaten up by Regeki. So both of these Commanders looking quite nice. T2 Lab coming up right here, but I have to say, it is quite a bit slower. Going for an Agio. Oh, that's a little surprising. I would have actually expected a Cerberus right here. This is a prime position for a Cerberus. If we just click this on, you can see it can actually fire away and take out multiple different front lines right here. A Cerberus cannon not only is quite a bit safer to put down, but also, you know, they do a huge amount of damage. They're a massive, massive splash of damage. They're essentially a LRPC, but they don't have the range. But they have about the same damage. At least I consider them about the same damage. Don't quote me on the exact numbers, because it could be off, plus or minus, but pretty close. Riot Tank here actually overwhelmed by the swarm. A bit of a bummer, because that is essentially its purpose. Centurion looking so good this game. Oh, I always love showcasing Centurion. It feels like they never got the respect that they were deserved, and they really are a beast of a unit, especially for T1. I mean, 270 metal for a essentially mobile LLT. We all know how commanders fare against the LLTs. It's no surprise that, well, LLTs that can walk, yeah, gonna hurt quite a bit against those comms and any units that they can put out on the fronts. Zhao a little bit slow in the unit production here, trying to prioritize the economy. Getting this geo up and running is nice, though, because obviously once this geo comes up and running, you're going to be essentially set for energy production until basically the late game. 1,250 energy is no joke. That's definitely enough to seriously boost your production. I mean, you can fully start T2 production, or you can even start really early T3. Don't think we're quite there yet as far as metal production goes, but this southern side is looking rough. Now this is expected because essentially what we have here, I'll just do a quick breakdown. What we have here, actually let me pause this so that we don't miss anything. What we have here is a 3-player left-hand side right here for the red team versus a 2-player side right here for the blue team. So this is going to be much more staggered for the red team going up against the blue team in this direction. It means that it's no surprise that this side is crumbling. What we should be seeing though is the same thing coming out of this northern side, right? So this is also 3 versus these 2. Means that this side should be crumbling in the northern red team. The fact that they're only holding on this high ground right here is actually a little bit of a failure. Praetor doing a wonderful job of pushing forward. Shoddy as well, shutting down the vehicle lab on that northern side, making this all work out very nicely, holding the line, and then some. The age-old dilemma of, oh, nice. Ryko transported out here, tried to get the D-gun. Austin tried to get the D-gun on the Comtrans, but missed it. Comm goes down, but it does take out the army there, slowing down the progress that the yellow commander was about to make. At the very least, well, providing a little bit of cover here for the green commander. Just a little bit. Sometimes crucial seconds are really all it takes. The thug army here looking quite devastating. We need a fleet of resbots behind all this to pick everything up. We do have a fleet of resbots behind all this, picking everything up. As long as those are resurrecting this army and continually reinforcing from the lab, this is actually not going to be the end of the world. These thugs can become very, very, very resilient. No anti-air in this composition, though, so Shuriken are finding immense value, and now the T2 are out on the field right now for Zhao. Gonna start dismantling this T1 infrastructure and blasting apart all these metal extractors. Praetor, however, already has his own T2 lab up and running. What a rapid T2 investment right here from the blue commander. Landmines, handed over. Oh, nicely done. Landmines handed over and put in a crucial position right there so that these medium tank, these light anti-swarm tanks, the pounders, do get blown to pieces by those hidden cloaked explosive devices. Sheldon now doing a great job of blasting these apart. As long as they have vision, they're going to be very lethal against any T1 army. Those shell shockers firing high into the air as well, but they will be easily overwhelmed by a whole bunch of fiends now swarming forward. T2, I believe, has been handed over here, yeah, to Narnuk, who's going to start building that T2 economy. We need to get these mexes all upgraded, and we have a Twitcher as well, so he can produce his own fiends. Lovely stuff right there from the Cyan Commander and the Blue Commander, working in tandem right here. Ah, I love the teamwork. One of those things that we get out of these pro-level players that we don't see all the time in the lower-level 8v8s, working as one cohesive unit rather than trying to win the game as 8 individual 1v1s. There's so many options for things that you can pull off if you work together as a team. Oh. The Centurion reigned supreme, just like that, catching the yellow commander. I was like, what on earth killed it over there? It was a handful of Centurions that just happened to be idly marching by. We do have a construction vehicle as well to go eat up that wreckage. Nice, okay, well, that's a nice little influx of metal right here for the green commander. Wouldn't mind seeing him spend some of that maybe on, potentially getting some advanced solars up and running. Anything really to help. Oh, wow. All right, we got some quitters here for the blue team. Purple commander is tapped out of the game right now, handed over all of air control to the green commander that's going to be into club trying to micro all of this. Meanwhile, the T2 forces pushing forward on the northern side are looking quite nice. Fiend's a little bunched up, which does mean those riot tanks are going to get some phenomenal value, but at the very least, it buys time for those Sheldon to whittle down those tanks very, very nicely. You need some sort of unit in the front here to provide vision. You can either spam forward cheap units, or you can build sturdy units and hope to micro them back as best you can. Either one works, but you need one of the two. Yeah, Sheldon not very effective if they can't see what they're shooting at. Not unless you get not sharpshooters, pinpointers. Pinpointers can make all the difference in this sort of a game, especially if you're going to be playing as Armada. If you're going into T2 Armada bots, you almost 100% should be going for pinpointers just so that sharpshooters get 100% effective value. Firing into the fog of war and wasting their very expensive shots on, well, missing? Yeah, not ideal. Not ideal in basically any circumstance. It's going to be bombing here from Zhao. Interesting. We've got, yeah, we've got some bombers coming up. We're gonna go straight into T2 bombers, actually. Okay. Well, we've eaten up the T2 lab to pay for it, so this, as far as metal cost, won't be an issue. We do have enough E-storage with this geothermal as well, providing energy to build all this stuff and pump out these units, but 1,300 energy is actually not really enough for full T2 production. Maybe a couple of strategic bombers or even a couple of gunships could be very, very valuable right now, but either one of those on the front line would be, well, necessary to shut down these Shuriken. Man, Shuriken have gotten so much value this game. Ro doing a phenomenal job in the backline here, but just pumping out a bunch of T1, good old-fashioned T1 Cortex Air, but it's more than enough to paralyze these tanks, paralyze these units, paralyze bases even at one point in this game. Enough to allow for really efficient trades, and that's what you're looking for. When you're on the back foot like the blue team is right now, you need those efficient trades however you can find them. The Shuriken are just one of the easiest ways to do that. Sheldon being effectively delayed right here. Yeah, no anti-air available from Narnuk. He does have an AA tower set up right here, but we're going to need quite a bit more, and we need it a lot closer to these troops as well. You can see barely covering these Sheldon right here with any sort of anti-air coverage. Shuriken on the southern side, paralyzing things as well, and now the swarm of pawns is marching forward. As long as these pawns are trading efficiently, it really doesn't matter. You can use those, you can trade those Shurikens out for an efficient fight, and pretty much anybody's going to be happy about it. Yeah, Shuriken finding immense value. Allowing the Centurion that already trade effectively against the lighter units, the grunts and goblins and pawns, that sort of thing. Allowing them to get even more value. They can run away with that effect very quickly. The front line is broken. Fiends have crashed through the static defenses, blasting down that T1 without any hassle, and now it looks like the Maroon Commander is on the back foot. No T2 were ever given on this northern side, and now the T2 advantage that the Cyan Commander has after just upgrading a couple of those T2 or those T1 mexes to T2, now going to start pumping out some of those slightly more expensive but much more efficient T2 units and getting huge value out of them. Hound streaming across the battlefield now, and it does look like, well, there's not much defense in the midsection here that the T2 isn't going to have, or is going to have a trouble with. Yeah, Hound's pushing forward right now, finding a bunch of constructors, sure, going to be running into a bunch of T1 defenses. Ignore this port, cries out the Red Commander, go up here. Love the strategic callouts right here. A lot of the times we just see, like, what are you doing? Why would you do that? Stop doing that, you know. Ineffective callouts, to say the least. Always good to see some teamwork that's actually properly focused on trying to help your team get the most efficient trade out of their units. Hound's blasting away right now, trying to take down this T1 stuff. They don't have any radar or radar jammer bots, which means that they are going to have to get within range to fire away. Not the end of the world, because as far as T2 goes, the Hounds are slightly more tanky than, for instance, Sheldons are. But again, they are a siege unit, so there's not really any reason why they have to be in place right here. Oh, high game. Sees the dragon. Ah, nice control right there from Zal. Careful not to fly the dragon too close to the commander here, blasting away from long range, trying to make sure that this dragon is always covered by a couple of these fighters here. So that's what we ended up going for, by the way, with this T2 Air Lab. A single dragon costing 5,100 energy, so more than a Razorback, for instance. It is a brutal piece on the airways. Not to mention its effective sniping capability. They can single-handedly take down commanders or even T3 units if they're sufficiently covered from anti-air. High gain, trying to hold the line right here. We have this fiend pawn composition. It's quite strange. A little bit of a mixed composition right here, as the Twitcher was pumping out fiends and the T1 lab was spamming out pawns. Meanwhile, on the northern side, all hell has broken loose. Shuriken paralyzing whatever they can, but the brown base is now in a lot of trouble. Fiends to clean it up are quite nice, of course, but as soon as these mexes come up and online, and as soon as more and more reinforcements do come up as well, things are going to start to become very difficult for the Brown Commander to hold. We've got multiple angles all being contested at the same time. Another dragon in production right now. The first dragon finding value out here on the front. We have a whole bunch of T1 anti-air bots, though, and you do have to be careful about those. The dragon, of course, more than sufficiently capable of destroying them, but there is so many of them that at this point the dragon finally gets blasted down. I want to say a slightly inefficient control of that dragon right there. No reason to fight the anti-air bots instead of just traversing past them and going into the base right here, trying to do as much damage to the economy as possible. And it also means that now the... Ooh, nice D-guns right there from... Oh, nice D-guns. Catching some of those Jaguar tanks. The speed with the micro right there from Regeki is so impressive, though. That was essentially undetected, and the second that D-gun flew out of that commander's arm, those tanks were microed back. Zal being killed by the chain effect right here. The commander may be cloaked to optic sensors, but it doesn't matter. The lightning arcs to the metal in the commander's body regardless. So it does mean that oftentimes these lightning tanks are effective to counter cloaked commanders. You really need that jammer to be 100% effective here. Lightning tanks finding an angle. Yeah. Looking dangerous. We do have the dragon 99% completed. There we go. Up in the air, the dragon is going to start heading over in that direction. Obviously, there's anti-air missiles latched onto these little Jaguar tanks, these lightning tanks, but not nearly enough anti-air to really do much damage against one of these flying beasts. Dragon easily flamethrowing down all the opposition right here, cleaning this up quite nicely, and going to go ahead and probably get repaired at the day spawn. No, not going to get repaired at all, actually. Instead, going to be sent across the map. All right. Well, we have a sufficient air force here. I love the pivots right now from all these commanders. Another note to pay attention to is how quickly these commanders can pivot between different techs, right? The blue team having 2 air players right here, the red team having 2 as well, matching each other in the air power. We do have a little bit of an eco dip right here as the orange commander tries to get a fusion reactor up on the line, try and increase that production. Loads of wind turbines everywhere, which is always lovely. Wind speed is quite nice on this map, but it does take up quite a lot of space, yeah. They're not in a little bit of trouble here, actually. Yeah, that commander is low HP. 2% HP left on that commander. Definitely needs to go to the day spawn and get patched up. A little bit of R&R, and that commander will be right back, ripe and ready, as always. But until that point, that commander needs to be very careful. Cloak in a corner, maybe sit under a jammer. Make sure that that commander doesn't get sniped. Dragons actually have an anti-air missile launcher built into their own chassis, so they have a little SAM turret on the back end there. You can see firing little anti-air missiles. It means that if you don't jump them with a swarm of units, they'll actually get killed by a... They'll actually be able to defend themselves from fighters. Big old air clash here. Always quite difficult to tell how these air battles are going until they're conclusively decided, but for the time being, it does look like the yellow commander has ran away with the victory in the air. Bombers coming in right now, trying to provide a little bit of HP that the fighters are targeting so that the dragon can still get some work done. Praetor, trying to degun that dragon down. Yep. Dragon being microed ever so carefully so that the commander can't quite get it. Staying out of effective range, and boom goes the brown commander. Fighters pulled to deal with the bombers means that the dragon had enough time right there. That's the kind of teamwork that I'm looking for. A beautiful play right there, a joint effort from the blue team. Eventually, dragon goes down, but managing to snipe the commander and the T2 lab right here for the brown commander means, of course, that reinforcements are going to be very delayed out to the battlefield. Meanwhile, a massive army pushing forward on the southern side for pro-Highgate, as it looks like all these static defenses that we were told to ignore are now causing quite a stir. Those twin guards, well, I mean, they're only light lasers that they fire, but sure, when you have 40 of them all firing simultaneously, it's like the guardsmen of 40k, right? You just have enough laser firepower and you can punch through basically any amount of steel. Each laser stripping off 1 millimeter of steel, but, you know, you have 40 lasers all firing. You're going to burn through anything pretty quickly. Wow. And with that, the push on the southern side, the dragons not apparently finding the value that they were hoping for. The blue team being overwhelmed on the southern side and unable to make a big enough play over on the northern will be overwhelmed by the firepower of the orange commander blasting through the defenses and eventually taking the victory. Pro-level games, as quickly as they start, they do come to an end, and I sure hope you enjoyed. I always love watching the pros get their hands dirty on a match, especially a map like this, where it's so imbalanced intentionally. Always very fun to see. Let me know what you thought about it down below in the comment section. I know we're in and out of here very quickly, 22 minutes on this cast, but that's just how quick the pros play, so thanks a ton for watching. I will see you in the very next game of Beyond All Reason.